peeps, welcome to another vlog. We got a juicy one for you today. I want to show you what we got here. I ended up going out and buying a Liberty pump. This is a backup pump model 441 because we have a storm sump pump over here that didn't fire, unfortunately. What ended up happening was, for some reason, the float ended up getting caught on the side of the walls and the float didn't activate. So it caused a lot of damage down here in the basement. So what we're gonna do now is opt to put in this backup pump, and in doing so, in case something ever happens like this in the future, we are hopefully gonna have a means of being able to have a pump discharge the water that's filling up the storm sump pit. Now the advantage of going with the Model 441 there is that the Model 441 is going to be connected to its own battery source. So it's a backup battery as well as a pump that's connected to the electrical. So it's got a special device that will charge the battery throughout the duration of its life so that under the circumstance where the power goes out, the battery will act as the power source if there's no electrical connected to it, and that way the pump will discharge even under the circumstance where the power goes out to the house essentially. So a lot of juicy plumbing coming your way. Peeps, do me a favor, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button down below and hit that bell notification so you know exactly when we're getting videos. Smash that thumbs up, share with friends, and let's go do some delicious plumbing.
So peeps, this was a really good learning experience for me because the moment I got to this installation, I realized right away that there was no shutoff valve installed with the existing force main. And I always thought up to this point in my career that all force mains required a union, a check valve, and shutoff valve in that sequence to bring the installation up to code. Now this makes a lot of sense because up to this point, all force mains that I've ever encountered had those three devices on them. But I also knew that this sump pit recently went through inspection and passed. So I ran to the Ontario Plumbing Codebook and here's what I found. 7463 number 8. The discharge pipe from every pumped storm sewage sump shall be equipped with a union and a check valve installed in that sequence in the direction of discharge and pumped to above grade level. Or letter B, a union, a check valve, and a shutoff valve installed in that sequence in the direction of discharge. So what this tells me is my initial installation, which would have involved a shutoff valve, would have been correct. I could have installed a union, check valve, shutoff valve in that sequence for this sump pit, and it would have worked perfectly fine and would have passed code. But because it's a storm pit, I don't actually have to install a shutoff valve. I can just go ahead and install a union and check valve, and that is why this installation was up to code, because there was already one in place.
Alright, I did some preliminary prep just for the battery backup and everything. So just so you can see, here's the system with the marine battery inside, and then it's going to connect to this port right here, and this has all the connections inside here. There will be an audible alarm if something is not firing, in other words. And then this section right here is actually the battery charging station. So this is going to keep the battery charged, and this is going to make a noise if we run into a situation where the system's not working, in other words. So I read the manufacturer's installation guide, and what they really suggest is putting in a check valve. This is the check valve that is supplied with the entire unit, the Liberty Pump 441. And as you can see in here, it's got a little trap door. You'll see it open. It's got a little trap door right there. You could also buy other check valves, but since it comes with the unit itself, I'm going to use it. Basically how this works is it's going to thread into the original pump, and it's going to only allow one direction of flow. If water comes in the opposite direction, it's going to close and not allow water to go through the original pump. That's the concern. So that's why we got to put in a check valve to make sure that that doesn't happen. Let's get that connected. Let's go.
So this is the first battery backup that I've ever installed. I've installed other force mains before, but never a system like this. One thing that I've noticed is I always move extra slow on installs I've never done before, even though I have all the skills necessary to get it done faster. I realize this is actually a learned behavior that I learned through my apprenticeship. When I was an apprentice, I used to rush into installations without spending a great deal of time dissecting the best possible solutions. The first solution that came to my head head was the one that I executed. On a couple of occasions, my journeyman pulled me aside and showed me that I had a simpler solution staring at me in the face. But because I rushed the first few stages, I was now in a situation where I had to spend longer time to solve the exact same problem. So because of that experience, I now move slower on a new plumbing experience. That way, my mind has time to digest and problem solve before making any major decisions. So this white glue that you see me using is called transitional glue. The reason why I'm using this glue is because I'm using two different materials here. I'm using ABS, which is color-coded as black, and PVC, which is color-coded as white. And although these are two different plastics, we have to use a special glue that will bond the two different materials together. I've heard of some plumbers using just ABS glue or just PVC glue, which we call System 15 here in Ontario, to transition these two materials. But from what I understand, these glues do not have the correct chemical makeup to give a thorough bond. I don't encounter a transition between these two materials very often, but it's useful to have on the truck in case I ever run into a situation like this. Alright, I just want to quickly show you the assembly that we have, okay? So, we have our primary pump. It's got a small check valve in here. This is its float switch. As soon as this fires on, this pump starts to activate. Alright, as we move up, I put in 2 split ring hangers and a piece of 3/8 threaded rod. That way these two do not move towards each other or away from each other. They constantly are going to keep this distance. That way these two pumps don't interfere with each other whenever they're supposed to fire. Here's our backup pump right here. Hits a 90. We put some transitional glue and a gear clamp. I tighten that guy down. As you come up, this is the float switch for the backup pump, okay? And as you'll notice, the level on this one is different from the level on this one. Alright? This one's a little bit higher. So as we come up, we hit a 45. We come into a Y, and that comes up into a second check valve right there. Let's connect it. Okay, so we got some progress, but I still got a little bit more work to do. First of all, I ended up connecting everything up to this port right here. I threw on the pump and it actually started beeping, making an alarm, letting everybody know that the backup pump ended up firing. So this is a very useful feature because now the homeowner will be able to hear that the backup pump has taken over, which means that the primary pump for whatever reason is not working the way it's supposed to.